Hey guys, hey Facebook world.
Hey, so it's Wednesday.
Yes, and it's Lauren and Tabitha here with Superior Realty Group.
And it's raining.
Pouring.
Yeah, like a little bit of rain and some wind.
Yeah, and yesterday it was sleeting.
Yeah.
All the seasons.
Yeah, crazy weather. Yes. So Lauren's like, what are we going to talk about? And
we're like, rain.
Yeah,
flood insurance.
Flood insurance. So yeah, do you have flood insurance? Do you need flood insurance? But you have a homeowner's policy.
Does that cover
exactly?
Insurance
does that cover floods?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is no. It doesn't cover floods.
No.
Floods are actually covered under flood insurance, which is a federally mandated program. And what we just called an insurance agent.
Yes.
That's a friend of ours.
Yes.
And what did you find out about today? So I live South Huntsville, and as we all know, Aldrich Creek kind of gets a little high.
Yeah.
So what if I want to call my carrier right now and get flood insurance?
So actually right now you can obtain a policy right now, but that's not actually going to go into effect for at least 30 days. So unfortunately, if your home lives in a flood zone area, first and foremost, that should have been covered at the time of actually obtaining your homeowner's insurance, because that should have been part of the discovery that your agent should have helped you with throughout that process. But secondly, unfortunately, you're out of luck, Tabitha. Your house will be flooded. And all the belongings in it and such will not be covered under your standard homeowner's policy, because they would have been affected and or damaged by the flooding.
Right. Exactly. So, and I mean, the thing about flooding is it can cause so much damage. Like water is
the worst.
Oh my gosh, water's horrible.
Personally, I would much rather deal with a fire situation than a water situation.
Water's horrible.
With water, you have potential leakage and seeping and it absorbing, right? So everything here in typically North Alabama is made with wooden frame structures. Some other parts, and we're seeing it come in with more of the luxury homes where you're getting the cement filled walls and things like that. That's a far and few between what we have currently out there on the mass. Most everything is wood based.
Yeah.
And if wood is going to absorb into that moisture and all of that water over a long time frame, think about when FEMA came in, when the hurricane hit down in New Orleans, they had to actually condemn a lot of those properties because of the water damage.
Exactly.
They couldn't deal with the fungus and the mold and all the growth that was happening internally inside of those beams.
And if you remember, a lot of those people didn't have flood insurance. So here's the thing. When you buy a new home, if you get a mortgage when you buy a new home.
Correct.
The flood certification is part of the mortgage process. So if your home is in a flood zone, which means that FEMA has come in and mapped it out and determined that you're in an area that's prone to flooding,
likely to flood,
then you would have been required by your mortgage company to carry flood insurance.
Yes.
But the thing that happens that we find is there are lots of areas that FEMA has determined aren't likely to flood, that when we get this kind of torrential downpour, they flood.
They can.
Yeah. And in that case, you probably don't have flood insurance.
Yeah.
Even though it's really cheap. If you're not in a flood zone, flood insurance is very inexpensive because the insurance company determines that the likelihood you'll have a flood is like slim to none, right? Whereas if you're in like an AE or you're in a high risk zone,
right? Like if you live like right off of Lake Gunnersville, or if you live closer to the Tennessee River, like towards like South Huntsville, Lacey Springs area, those are going to be probably prone to a little bit higher volume of.
And your premiums are high because they know that it's flooded in the past, it's going to flood again. It's just a matter of when.
Yes.
So they know they're going to pay out. But flood insurance is, at this point, federally mandated, which the one nice thing about that is that the rates are controlled.
It's a set rate,
So, the rates are controlled by the government, and I don't know if that's, how long that will be the case, but it's the case today. And you can lower your rates, though, if you're in a flood zone and you get quoted really high rates. You need to ask about whether or not they have an elevation certificate on file for your property, because if it was built anytime in the last 20 plus years, the likelihood is that the builder built up the pad and that you're above flood elevation.
Right.
So if you get an elevation certificate, then you can get a quote based on that real data instead of the blanket zone
and the possibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you're buying a house and your agent didn't check on FEMA's website to make sure it's not in a flood zone.
Right.
You might want to ask, or you might want to check yourself. You can go on FEMA.gov. They have a really cool interactive map, and it'll do a whole overlay of all the flood zones. and you can see whether or not.
You can just type in your address and it'll pull it up. And it's got like a ledger on the side that explains the different types of flood zones. Like Tabitha just mentioned, AE is one of the higher elevations, or I guess lower elevations if you're thinking of it that way. So it's one of the lower. Right.
And X is a good one. Like if it's X, you're good. You don't have to have flood insurance, although you might want to still buy it. I mean, unless you're sitting on top of Montesano Mountain.
Right.
I mean, if you flood, then we all need a boat.
We all need a boat. We just need to hook ours to the sides of our windows and just start rowing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think, is there anything else they need to know about flood insurance?
Not that I can think of.
I mean,
it's definitely comes in handy. A lot of people don't necessarily think about it until situations like this come up. So that's why we wanted to kind of bring it up, because I'm sure a lot of people that are living close to the greenways or close to like the Tennessee River line, like some people out in Owens Crossroads, are also to that in Hampton Cove and places like that. Even mine, I mean, I'm living near Providence, but you know, there's the Indian Creek Greenway that runs through there, and that gets really high, and it's like, maybe I should have thought about this.
And a lot of Hampton Cove is in a flood zone. So what we find will happen is builders, when they come in and they develop new communities, they have FEMA come in, they build it up. So even though they bought land in a flood zone, everything's in a flood zone, but in a high risk flood zone, they build it up and they have FEMA rezone it so that it's not in a flood zone. But what we find is sometimes, while they've done that, it's still prone to flooding.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So,
but definitely, like Tabitha was saying, just to reiterate, the elevation certificate, it does help you keep that cost down. So if you are someone new looking to purchase a property, and you're in that process now, whether you're currently just starting the process or you're about to go under contract for a particular home, right now is actually a great time to go out and look at the property. Go ahead and take a look at it. See what the yard is doing. See how much moisture is actually accumulating on the top levels, because you don't want to be in a situation where, now this is an extreme case. It doesn't normally rain like this for us here in North Alabama. We typically do get a lot of rain, but not like this. No. So ultimately, you want to go and check out that property. I know it's not great. It's not a great day to go out. It's not beautiful and sunny, but now's when you kind of get to see, like, you're opening the closet doors, right?
Yeah,
so you're getting the skeletons.
Case scenario, is the drainage proper? Because I mean, there's lots of things you can do to fix drainage around your house.
Exactly.
But you don't want water like just flowing into your crawl space either. Or your slab.
Right. And so here's a great point to, you can see how the gutters are actually functioning. If the downspouts are working properly, because if the downspouts and the gutters aren't working properly, that water is going to accumulate and build up there. So there's probably some debris up there, which is going to moisture and keep that the soffits area around your roofing and like that seam line up there. It's not going to be great in the long run. So you want to make sure all of those components are working really well, and this is the perfect time to do it. So please go out there and look at homes. If you're under contract, if you're thinking about putting an offer on a particular property and it was sunny on Saturday or Friday and you want to go back out there, today is the time.
Absolutely. And like I said, if you're looking to buy a property, make sure before you sign on that dotted line that your agent has done their due diligence and has let you know what flood zone it's in. So you don't want the surprise, because flood insurance, even with an elevation certificate, it can be thousands of dollars a year depending on where your home is.
Yeah, and that ultimately affects your bottom line for your payment. So it's kind of like, you have your payment calculators online, and they do a great job of calculating your principal and interest, which is just the number itself, but not necessarily your escrows.
Right.
So when you speak to a professional or an industry expert, anyone, an agent with our office or any other office, hopefully they'll know these as well.
Absolutely.
But they can tell you and say, okay, this is what you're expected to pay with all of your escrow fees. And then when they find out how much the insurance will be in addition with that flood certification or without it for the flood zone, they can give you a better estimate of what your payment will be. And sometimes that can even push you outside of your comfort zone as far as your total payment.
Yep. So it may make you decide on a different house just based on that information.
Right.
I know for us personally, we have a contingency that we always write in our contracts that kind of cover you in the event that it pops up, it's in a flood zone, which is helpful, where we basically are asking for an elevation certificate. But just make sure you're thinking about that, because flood insurance, people just assume they have insurance, so they're covered for flood. Flood is specifically excluded on a homeowner's policy. 100% of the time, okay?
Yes.
It's specifically excluded. I mean, there's other sorts of water backup that is covered, but not flood.
Yeah.
Not flooding. You've got to have flood insurance. So.
And if you have questions about it, definitely reach out to your homeowner's insurance provider. You can also reach out to your mortgage lender if you just recently have closed. They would know. Look on FEMA to see if you're in the flood zones.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, you guys have a great day. Try not to float away.
Right. Look, and if someone's got a kayak out there, y'all more than welcome to take me home.
Exactly.
I don't know if I'm ready to drive back in all this.
I hear you.
So.
All right. Well, have a great day. We'll see you next week. Bye.